Yes, Honorable Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to ask the nominee that in his earlier answer to the Executive Director of the Not-for-Profit Citizen Vigilance for Justice, he said he was one of the directors. Did I hear him right?
Yes.
Meaning there are other directors?
Surely. It's a registered company at the Registrar General. A search will disclose them.
Who are the other directors?
I'm saying a search will disclose them. Because I don't have their permission to name them.
Well, on page 3 of your CV, between 1993 to 2001, then again 2011 to 2012, you have served as a Minister of State. Did you declare your assets?
It would have been sacrilegious not to. It is a constitutional requirement. It's filed in the Auditor General's Department.
Between 1988 and January 1993, you served as Chairman, Public Agreement Board. What was the function for this group?
Mr. Chairman, I think I have indicated that the Public Agreement Board was set up under Section 42 of the Provisional National Defense Council Proclamation, Subsequential Provisions and Consequential Law 1983, PNDC Law 42. And my main job, in fact, the functions are clearly stipulated, the statutory. My main job was a gatekeeper against people, ministers, and others trying to push through contracts and agreements which were not in the national interest. And indeed, before I was appointed, the chairman lasted 6 months. But when I was appointed, I lasted until we came into the constitutional regime. And the Honorable Yelechire will tell you that I was so meticulous with my members that unless the contract is in the national interest, I rejected it. And I had a lot of problems with senior ministers, PNDC members, but the president, the chairman of the PNDC, solidly behind me, and I did my job, and nobody has been accused of entering into a contract which was not in the national interest, because if anybody is to be prosecuted, it will be me who approved the agreement before the PNDC signed it. So that is, and also we were supposed to keep records of public agreements. I had a secretariat, and I suppose if the archives of the Attorney General's Department is working, all the minutes are there, and you find them there. I'll give you one example. SIC decided to enter into a contract with Elcom-SIC for building of accommodation in Accra. We approved it. I was in Kumasi coming from the north when I heard over the air that the Minister for Works and Housing and the Chairman Committee of Secretaries had, inaugurated the board. When I came, I wrote a letter to the Chairman of the PNDC and told him we hadn't approved it. A PNDC meeting was called, right? I was able to get the background of the companies from the UK. And it showed that the company which was coming to partner, the most viable financial institution in Ghana, had only £200 as stated capital. With all the PNDC secretaries and committee of chairman making the distance, PNDC refused it. That's the job I did. And that is why, if you want anybody who will be meticulous in investigation and prosecution, the president has made the best choice for you. But if you want somebody who will look the other way, just disapprove me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This chairmanship you serve at the time that you were also the Deputy Attorney General and Deputy Minister for Justice. Is that right?
That is so.
Again, Mr. Chairman, the nominee became Chairman, Subcommittee of National Investigations Committee, appointed by the PNDC into financial irregularities and maladministration within the Social Security Bank Limited, July 1988 to September 1988. What was this about?
In fact, I was PNDC Deputy Secretary for Volta region. There had been a problem, so Kobna J came to take over from me in Ministry of Industries, and I went there. Not long, there was a problem at SSB Bank, and the PNDC was looking for what Neo Kaja said, a hard-nosed fellow. And the chairman of the PNDC decided that his hard-nosed fellow to nose into this thing was me. So I was given additional responsibility for that investigation. But I will go to Ho, do my work, take a number of days, come and do the investigation. And that led to the reorganization of the Social Security Bank, which enabled us to divest it into SG, Society Generale today. At that time, it was a topical issue. The younger ones don't know how serious it was. But we did a good job. There's a white paper on it. And one just has to look at it and see how we did it without fear or favor, affection or ill will. Whether you were a friend or a foe, once you were liable, no, the grumble falls.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well, honorable members. Now we will go into the main.
Yes.
Oh, leader, you want another?
I'll start with.
Chairman, let me now use this opportunity to congratulate the nominee and to wish him well. Honorable Martin Amidu, in your answer and in your narration of your discussion with the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa, you intimated to this committee that the values and ideals of accountability and transparency and wanting to fight graft and corruption inspires you to accept this nomination, but that there were certain wrongs with the law. I believe you are referring to the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959. What are the wrongs with the law that you see and as you wrote? Do you share them with us? And would you call for an immediate review and parliamentary amendment of those wrongs? Thank you.
In fact, as I said, it was a discussion between me and the president. And I called his attention to the fact that I had written a critique about the law. And I had made proposals that I didn't think that they must equate their position with that of the judiciary, which is in my critique. I made it abundantly clear. I didn't know whether that was in the law, right? But it turns out that it is in the law. So the question was, what do you do? So I said that, when he said that, look, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That meant that, in spite of what I said, once the Supreme Court hasn't made a ruling on it, and the law had been passed, and he wanted me to be his nominee, it meant I had to subject myself to approval of Parliament. And once I had nothing to hide, I said, no problem. My problem was a problem of constitutional principle. But if it has been passed, what's the problem? And you recognize that Trump, US President Trump, signed the Russian sanctions law with a memorandum saying that he believed it was unconstitutional. And yet it is the law. So that's one of the things I mentioned to the president about. But nonetheless, thought that it is better to fight the canker ourselves in a democratic regime than to allow it to fester, and some opportunists will use it as an excuse, as has been used in the past. So that was the main issue which came up for discussion. And
Chairman, what I want to appreciate from the nominee, do you see anything wrong with the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, as assented to by the President?
What I will want to say is that I have made critique about the bill, right? Most of it has been taken care of. Most of it. And I've given you an example of what wasn't taken care of. And I understand the pressures Parliament was from civil society, right? Who thought that a certain perception should be taken. As far as I'm concerned, the law is in its current form, is doable. And as I wrote in my critique, what the president was suggesting was doable. And as long as it's doable, I go with it. Because if you have fought corruption and its allied friends since your infancy, and this is the only opportunity to try to see whether you can excise the canker, don't throw away the water, the dirty water, with the baby.
Chairman, in the nominee introduction, I'm paraphrasing him again, you said there were slippages and leakages, and therefore your commitment to fight graft and corruption. However, you ended with a reference that since 1992, is that to suggest that from independence, we have not had those slippages and leakages?
Chairman, I have said that one of the reasons given for the various coup d'etats are corruption. And these are slippages and leakages. When I went by 1993, it's the fourth Republican Constitution, which is supposed to be the last constitution for Ghana, right? So if in the past there were these slippages and leakages, which resulted in people being shot at the firing squad by no less a regime, by the PNDC, the June 4th regime, which metamorphosed later into the PNDC under which I served, and whose ideals was to prevent it. I am committed to make sure that what I started as a young man and served until January 2003, 7 January 2003, that's when the constitutional rule came into force. And the Constitution says accountability, transparency, the rule of law will be respected. So that's what I mean by from 93, that is within the constitutional regime.
That's appreciated. May I take the nominee to Section 4 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, and with the chairman indulgence, I quote, except as otherwise provided in the Constitution, the office is not subject to the direction and control of a person or an authority in the performance of the functions of the office. However, 4.2, Chairman, and that's where my emphasis is, and that's where I'll drive my question from. Subject to Clause 4 of Article 88 of the Constitution, the office shall, for the purpose of this Act, be authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct the prosecution of corruption and corruption-related offenses. Walk this committee through how you intend to work with the Attorney General to realize the fundamental objectives of this Act.
Mr. Chairman, if you go back to my critique and look at page 8, I said that the Special Prosecutor Office Act will not be constitutional unless the Special Prosecutor works under the authority of the Attorney General. And in fact, there are legal decisions which interpret what working under the authority is. It doesn't mean that the Special Prosecutor loses its independence. So that's the way I see it. The Attorney General, by Article 88, has been given certain powers, right? Unless you change the Constitution, a Special Prosecutor can be made independent and work under her authority. It has a different meaning from the meaning many people ascribe to it. And if you read that, my critique, you will see that I've quoted Namibian and Trinidad and Tobago cases, which interpret what authority accounting are. So that's why I supported that as a basis for drafting the bill.
So how independent do you conceive you will be from the Attorney General established under Article 88 of the Constitution?
Mr. Chairman, I act from precedent, and I act also from persuasive precedents. When the Parliament was drafting this act, I emailed an article by Kevin Stark to the clerk to the committee so that the ranking member and the chairman of the committee will have an insight on the American position. And it is clear that even under the code of ethics of lawyers in Ghana, every lawyer is an independent contractor. If you sell your conscience to your colleague lawyer, you are subject to discipline by the disciplinary committee. So I get amazed when I'm told that lawyers have been directed by the Attorney General to do that, when I was Attorney General, I never directed anybody. I discussed with you. If you had a strong feeling that you couldn't do it for ethical reasons, I took the docket. I went to Supreme Court on a number of cases because my lawyers, some of them, had a strong feeling. So any lawyer who just takes blind instructions from the Attorney General, I'll call a zombie and acting contrary to the ethics of the legal profession of Ghana. The American position stays the same thing. And the questioner is a lawyer. And you know that. A lawyer is an independent contractor. A lawyer who succumbs to the views of the other when he strongly feels about it has abdicated his position and subject to discipline.
Chairman, my last on the post-CV, and as the President stated in his State of the Nation address, uncharted waters of Office of Special Prosecutor as part of many instruments to combat economic criminality and white crime in Ghana. Will you share with this House, in addition to this legal instrument, what other strategies and modalities will you work with to combat corruption in Ghana as is permeated every aspect of our public life, from the police officer on the street to the civil and public servants who is delaying process? What will you do in addition to this legislation to deal with white-collar criminality?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have stated in my 25-page critique that we have to give this thing a trial. And then I stated there that the Ethics in Governance Act 1974 of the USA has gone through many tribulations, and it was not renewed in 1999. To call attention for the fact that we have to set up strong institutions if we must succeed. If we don't set up a strong institution, we are going to replicate the Office of the Special Prosecutor as we did with other institutions. We will have a problem. The way forward I see it is that the Act permits us to set up departments that will help us to do our work. I think that it will not be prudent when I have not been approved to begin talking about what divisions I will set up, what I will not set up. But when my deputy, when I'm appointed and my deputy is appointed and the board is appointed and we have a complement of staff, I will lead them to explore ways of even catching the thief, so that if my employees, are taking bribe, I'll have a way of knowing that they are. There are various ways in intelligence and security to do this. The FBI and other bodies have done it. We will do it. So it's not going to be a situation in which you think that working in my office is just a holiday. No. We shall make sure that if you get into it, we'll hold you there. Because Caesar's wife must be above suspicion, and when you approve of me, I must be the first one above suspicion. I have demonstrated it before in positions I have held, and I'm going to make sure that I myself am above suspicion. That is the basis on which we can eradicate corruption in this country.